aka Total Makeup Junkie 101, and welcome back to my channel. Now today I wanted to do a different kind of video on my channel, and this is a Throwback Thursday makeup edition. Now I was inspired to do this video because of a fellow YouTuber named Holly Forrest. She does Throwback Thursday makeup edition videos showing all of these old products that she came across in her mom's storage unit, I believe. It's kind of cool to know the makeup world now and to see where it's come from, and especially if you weren't into makeup, say 10 years ago or so, it's kind of nice to see the older packaging, kind of like the vintage formulas. So today I wanted to do that kind of video, but for holiday makeup palettes. Since I've been talking about holiday palettes for the past couple weeks on my channels exclusively, I was inspired to pull out some of the older palettes in my collection and just revisit them. These are palettes that I don't really use anymore at all. These are the oldest palettes in my collection. These are some of the first makeup palettes I ever purchased, and these are palettes that I never see myself parting with, and I know I don't use them anymore, and I know they're just taking up space in my collection, and I know I sound like a makeup hoarder when I say I am just going to keep these palettes for no actual practical purpose, but they just make me happy to look at, and they make me remember that time in my life where I was just getting into makeup. So I have 6 different palettes to show you guys in this video, and I have very specific stories and memories related to most of these, which is another thing that I wanted to share with you guys as I go through the palettes. Now please keep in mind that all of these palettes were limited edition 5 or more years ago, meaning they're not going to be easily accessible anymore. You may be able to find some on eBay if you really wanted to. This is just more of me doing a little bit of nostalgia on camera. So we'll go ahead and start off with the palette that has the most nostalgia to me, and this is the palette that started it all. This was the palette that sent me on a downhill slope into the world of Sephora and into the world of makeup, and I have a very specific story to share on this palette. This is the Too Faced Glamour Revolution palette. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this palette was released in holiday 2009, I believe, because I definitely remember being in high school. Before I talk about the story with this palette, I'll just go ahead and show you what it looked like. This is such a beautiful little palette. It's definitely not as much of a value set as the palettes you get nowadays. You open it up like this, it's like a little booklet, and it has this little mirror which is actually magnetized in there. I thought that was a really cute touch. You get the little look cards in here that Too Faced still does to this day in their palettes. And then you get a bronzer, a blush, 3 lip glosses in a palette, which I don't think I've even ever touched because I don't like lip glosses in palettes. And then you pull this little tray out and you get a mini Too Faced shadow insurance as well as 9 different shadow colors. This is definitely a cute little set, and I remember this being not too bad in price. I think it was about $39, which when you take into consideration that Too Faced sets are now like $59, that is not a bad price. Now, to quickly summarize the story that I have with this palette, I remember that one of my very, very best friends in high school, and still to this day one of my very best friends, actually purchased this product. A new Sephora had opened up in our city. Our city never had a Sephora before, and I do not know what Sephora was. A Sephora opened up and she had went and picked this up, and I went over to her house one day and she showed it to me. She was really excited about it. I was definitely not informed about makeup. I was definitely not informed about the prices or the brands of makeup at all, but she was so excited about the kit. She pulled it out and showed it to me, and she was like, it's only $39, which is such a great value. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, she paid $40 for makeup. Of course, I was in high school and I was not into makeup, and if I was going to buy makeup, it was going to be the $5 eyeshadow at Rite Aid. But she just hyped this kit up so much, and she was so overjoyed that you could get 9 shadows and the blush and bronzer and the lippies and the primer, and she was so excited about it that I was kind of interested and I was intrigued. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go ahead and walk into this Sephora store, and I walked in, I did see this kit, and I was really in love with the packaging of it. I was a huge pink person. I mean, it's pink, it's gaudy, it's got flowers and butterflies on it. I loved it. And I was at that point like pinching my purse strings thinking, okay, I'm gonna pay $40 for this palette. Is it worth it? Is it really worth it? And I ended up just buying it. I came home, I tried it out. I had no idea what I was doing because let's be honest, I know nothing about eyeshadow at this point. I barely even know how to apply lip gloss. I think at that point is when I started kind of looking online at reviews of this product. And I think that was when I was on the Sephora website, saw reviews of this product, and I think someone had linked back to their YouTube video that they did on this palette. And that's when I stumbled into the world of the beauty community on YouTube. I dived deeper and deeper and deeper, and 5 years later, here we are. It's funny how memories like that are really associated with products. When I actually pulled this palette out, that's when that whole flashback of this is what started it all. That's when I remembered it. And the other funny thing is the friend that actually initially bought this product and introduced it to me and introduced me into the world of Sephora, I don't even think she knows she did it. I don't think she realizes that her showing me this product is why I am here making this video today. I should probably tell her that. Or now she knows watching this video, I assume. So after picking up that Too Faced palette, my mind was just buzzing and racing and thinking, okay, I want another palette. I want to go back to Sephora and see what else they have. And I remember stumbling across this little guy. This is by Tarte. This is called the Treasure Chest palette. And when I saw this palette fully opened up, I think I actually needed a moment to like control myself. I was so excited. So you open up the palette like this, and up here on the top, you are getting 16 eyeshadows. These are all shimmery in finish. And then you just pull these wings out on the side. Let's see if I can actually show this to you. And underneath here, you are getting 16 more shadows, and this layer is all matte. And then down here, you have this little pulley tab where you pull out this little tray. I'll just go ahead and disconnect it from the rest of the palette because it's so hard to hold up. This little tray has 16 lip glosses in it. I don't think I've used, oh actually no, I have used this one, but you guys know I'm not a crazy lip gloss palette person. And then you keep pulling it out, and this is what you get in the bottom. You have a bronzer, a highlight, and 4 blushes. Now everything in this palette is so generously sized. I mean, look how big those blushes and the bronzer and highlight are. Not to mention the size of the shadow pans. I mean, look at how big these are compared to this year's Tarte palette, and even more than the sizes of the shadows. Look at the colors that Tarte has. They actually had color. That's a green, that's a teal, that's a blue. Come on, Tarte. What the heck happened to your blue shadow? I mean, heck, even in the mattes, they had a matte violet, a matte teal, a matte royal blue. These are colors we don't really see from Tarte anymore, which is really unfortunate, but these are really good. So after picking up those 2 palettes and diving further and further and further into the whole of the YouTube beauty community, where I definitely was no longer going to be able to dig myself out of that, I started hearing about the brand Urban Decay. I think we all know what Urban Decay is now. If you haven't heard of Urban Decay, I will go ahead and introduce you to it today. Urban Decay had their classic Book of Shadows out that year. They had one out the previous year. Of course, I wasn't into makeup at the time, but I did end up picking up the Book of Shadows that came out that year, and that was the Book of Shadows Volume 2. Now, if you guys have been into makeup for long enough, you guys will recognize the Book of Shadows series. Long before Urban Decay had their Vice series, the Book of Shadows was where it was at. So this is general, like the general layout of a Book of Shadows. This top part always kind of flips open, and you have something cutesy inside here. This time it had this little trap door that had this little lookbook. that just popped out like that. If you pull this little tabby thing down here and you pull this out, this was what you were actually purchasing. You get 16 eyeshadows. This one had 2 deluxe sized of their liners and then 1 mini primer potion, which I've already used up. The neat thing is, if you read some of the names of these shadows, a lot of these are still available in the line today, which is kind of cool. They have Perversion, Nylon, Half Baked is in here, Twice Baked, Midnight Cowboy Rides Again, Flip Side, YDK, Mushroom. These are all like classic Urban Decay shadows now. Do keep in mind, Urban Decay did reformulate their eyeshadow formula a couple of years ago, long after this palette was released. So this palette had the original, the classic Urban Decay chunky, glittery, fallout prone shadows. So I mean, the most notorious one would probably be Midnight Cowboy Rides Again. I remember loving this palette. Urban Decay shadows, even back then, were the cream of the crop, the best of the best. They have not changed that in any ways today. Urban Decay shadows are still some of the best on the market. Fast forward a year and we are back into the holiday season where all of the palettes come out again. I believe this is holiday of 2010. I believe at this point I was making YouTube videos and all of the big holiday sets come out again, and I had to get the sequel to the one that started it all, which is the Too Faced set. This year it is the Too Faced Enchanted Glamourland. And I will say that from the previous year's palette, Too Faced really stepped up their game hardcore. I mean, in a year, they upped everything. The packaging is very similar to the other one. You open it up like a book, but this one has this gigantic pop-up. Once again, you get the little Too Faced look cards here in this little slot. And then right here, you are getting one of their bronzers, which this one is the, I believe it's the Snow Bunny bronzer. It's the striped one. I know big Too Faced addicts will know which one this is. And then a blush. They decided to cut the lip gloss pots, which I really appreciate because I didn't use them in the other palette anyways. And then you have this little thing that pulls out yet again. And in here, you are getting just absolute gorgeousness. You are getting, how many are you getting? 15? Yep, 15 shadows down here, which is a big upgrade from the 9 that they had in the last palette. This year you are getting a full-size shadow insurance and a full-size lip gloss. Now, once again, the funny thing is a lot of the colors that were in this palette still to this day are colors that Too Faced has in their line. Label Whore is a popular one, In the Buff, Velvet Revolver, Honey Pot, I know they still have. Now, I do think at this point in my life, I considered myself a makeup collector. So I basically needed to have all of the holiday kits that I could possibly get my hands on. This one was one of them. The other one, which I was definitely not going to leave behind because it brought nostalgia from the year before, the new Tarte palette, well, new back then, not new now. This is the Jewelry Box palette, and if you guys have been following my channel for 5 years, which I know is not most of you, I did actually do a full review video on this palette. It's an old video. It was filmed on my webcam, so I believe it's like in 240p. You can't really see anything. I didn't do a ton of swatches even, but funny enough, that video did get quite a few views, at least for me at the time. The little cutesy thing about this palette was that you did get an actual necklace. You could actually detach this necklace on the palette. You could see I never did. I just left it on. You open it up the exact same way as the last Tarte palette, and it's got a very, very similar layout. On the top, you have 16 shimmer shadows. On the bottom layer, you have 16 matte shadows. And then once again, you have this little tray that just pops out of the bottom. In it, you have a full-size illuminator, a full-size bronzer, 8 lip sticks that are actually melted down into the palette. You can see I've only swatched them. I did swatch them in that review video. I haven't actually used any of them. And then you pull this bottom tray out and you have 5 mini liners, which I remember not being the greatest in quality. I always picked up these palettes for the shadows, and I actually did get a lot of use out of some of these shadows. I really did love this palette. And then the very last makeup palette I wanted to show you guys is another Urban Decay one. This one did not come out around the holidays, I believe. I think this one actually came out around the springtime or so. This was the Urban Decay Alice in Wonderland palette. I wanted to show this one to you guys despite it not being a holiday palette, because this is probably still to this day one of the most coveted Urban Decay palettes to date. They released this palette in very limited quantities in collaboration with the Alice in Wonderland movie featuring Johnny Depp that came out. So this is what the palette looks like. It is a classic Book of Shadows style. So you just kind of pop open the top, and you have a little pop-up here, which is actually adorable. You have Alice staring at the mushrooms, looking into Wonderland. I thought this was such a cute little touch. I loved it. And then you pull down this little tab, and out pops, again, 16 shadows, 2 deluxe size liners, and a primer potion. Now, despite this palette being very limited edition and really hard for me to acquire, I actually used this palette quite a bit, but I wasn't heartbroken over using this because all of the colors in this palette are actually permanent colors that have just been renamed to fit with the Alice in Wonderland theme. So I know this one here called Oraculum is Baked. I know this shade down here, which is called Mad Hatter, is Twice Baked. This one, Jabberwocky, is Oil Slick. And this color here, White Rabbit, is Polyester Bride. So these are just renamed permanent colors. I do remember this palette being a pain in the butt to acquire. I called my Sephora, no, I stalked my Sephora for weeks when I knew it was coming out, and I called them multiple times a day as if a shipment of these was just gonna magically show up on their doorstep. And I'm pretty sure this was my first makeup stalking moment. You know, if you wanna get something that's really limited edition and hard to get, you have to stalk your Sephora stores. This was the first limited edition goodie that had my heart racing, that I had to stalk my store. So that completes my Throwback Thursday holiday palette video. I hope this was a fun video for you guys. I figured this would be more of a story time video and a fun kind of hang out with me style video. So I hope you guys loved it nonetheless. Let me know if you did in the comments down below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you liked it, and I will catch you guys in my next video on Monday. I will see you then. Bye! You get really decent portions of all 3 of the popular Luminize. It's hard for me to achieve a full look using just this palette because